It's simply incredible. Paolo Banchero averaged 20 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 3.7 assists per game during his rookie season. Do you know the last rookie to achieve at least those averages? Blake Griffin in 2009. Do you want to know the last one before that? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or rather how he was known at that time, Lew Alcindor in 1969. So how is it possible that Paolo Banchero is the most disrespected first overall draft pick in recent NBA history? Well, it's true, he's not Ben Simmons or Anthony Bennett, but he is the most disrespected of those who have so far performed as expected, although behind this, as always, there's a reason. Let me explain, because this story is simply unbelievable. From completely transforming a franchise that couldn't find any answers, to a medical condition that makes him extremely special, to being hated by an entire country at only 20 years old. But in order to really understand it, you have to start at the beginning. From the time he was born in November 2002 in Seattle, Paolo proved he was no ordinary athlete. In addition to being an exceptional basketball player right from the start of his high school career, the kid was a prodigy in more sports. Specifically, he took part in track and played football. As an 8th grader, Banchero was ranked among the top 50 nationally in both basketball and football. We've seen some cases of elite players in these fields, such as LeBron James or Allen Iverson, and the truth is that, by chance or not, the prospects who follow this path are usually absolutely elite. And as we've seen with other NBA stars, his family's basketball background undoubtedly helped. His mother, Rhonda Smith, was a WNBA player who, logically, also played college basketball in Washington, while his father, Mario Banchero, who is of Italian descent, also played college football in Washington. They had the perfect DNA to create a generational prospect, but the difficulties he'd have to overcome, as we'll see, were just as great as his talent. Even though Banchero was already 6'5" as a 7th grader, he was also tremendously talented. In his freshman year at Odeya High School, he averaged 14.1 points and 10.2 rebounds per game. Averages that increased to 18.2 points, 10.3 rebounds, and 4.3 assists during his sophomore year, in which he won the state championship and was MVP. And averages that again increased to 22.6 points, 11 rebounds, and 3.7 assists during his junior year, earning Washington Gatorade Player of the Year. His size and frame caught the attention of Division I scouts, who had a fierce battle to recruit the forward from Seattle. As many as 16 offers from top-tier colleges offered him a spot on their rosters, including Kansas, Michigan, North Carolina, and Kentucky. And no wonder, as Banchero was rated as a 5-star prospect by Rivals, 24/7 Sports, and ESPN, which also gave him a grade of 97 out of 100. But in the end, Paolo decided on Duke University in what would be legendary coaches Mike Krzyzewski's last season at the helm of the Blue Devils. There he was a difference maker from the start, scoring 22 in his debut in what would be the beginning of a great freshman season. Banchero averaged 17.2 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 3.2 assists per game. But beyond his solid averages that showed his versatility for a forward, Paolo performed well in the 2022 NCAA tournament. The Blue Devils won the West Regional and qualified for the Final Four, where they lost 81-77 to the University of North Carolina. He was such a complete prospect that his only weakness was a medical condition. So during his time at Duke, major web pages like CBS Sports ran the story that Paolo would sweat so much that he would lose up to 7 pounds of weight per game. Can you imagine that? Think about the fact that UFC fighters or boxers take weeks to drop such significant amounts of weight, and many times they're unable to keep it off. Well, Banchero does it in 30 minutes. Obviously, this is not a good thing though. So much so that Banchero had to take a sweat test and drink a special BOA oxygenated fluid to stave off cramps and to avoid other major risks. But at least he can be thankful to have lived in this era, as this drink is a recent invention. Despite this problem, his selection within the first 3 picks in the 2022 draft was a no-brainer, and it would change NBA history forever. Banchero was finally selected by the Orlando Magic with the first overall pick, even before the favorite to go number 1 that year, Jabari Smith. And Orlando was coming off one of the worst sports decades in league history. Prior to Paolo, the Magic had selected many other lottery picks who didn't live up to the hype. Aaron Gordon in 2014, Mario Hezonja in 2015, Jonathan Isaac in 2017, Bamba in 2018, Jalen Suggs in 2021. And to top it all off, the Orlando Magic's best picks in the last decade have been players like Domantas Sabonis in 2016 who nonetheless blew up after leaving the franchise. Now, what does all this indicate? Well, that maybe the Magic aren't the best team when it comes to developing talent. A huge con with which nothing can be done, because logically, the rookies have no say in choosing their fate. But unlike all lottery picks that have landed in Orlando over the last decade, Banchero exceeded expectations from the start. In his rookie year, the forward averaged 20 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 3.7 assists per night. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, the last 3 rookies to average those numbers have been Paolo himself, Blake Griffin, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. No, neither Michael Jordan nor LeBron James, with their extraordinary rookie campaigns, serve as precedents for those averages. Logically, Banchero ended up winning the Rookie of the Year trophy and gave hope to a city that had long been without a player with the potential to become an NBA star. Unfortunately, we've seen that his career has been a mixture of moments of plenitude and moments of misfortune, and the summer between his rookie and sophomore seasons was to be no different. His problem? He was so good that the federations of several countries were fighting over him. Playing for the Azzurra is a source of pride for me because my family feels Italian. Now I have the passport and can't wait to start. See you soon, Italy. In 2020, at the height of the COVID pandemic, Banchero obtained Italian citizenship. Huge news in FIBA context, with which the European country would have one of the best prospects in the world in its ranks. The influence of his father and his Italian lineage allowed him to stop being just another prospect in the United States to become, probably, the best player in the history of an entire country upon his retirement. A decision that multiplied the expectations of a country where basketball has never been the most important sport. But Banchero received a call during the summer of 2023 that he may not have expected. On the other end of the phone was Steve Kerr, sounding out the possibility of the forward joining Team USA for the 2023 World Cup. And of course, with an offer like that, it's very difficult to say no. Paolo committed himself to the United States to play in the tournament, and the reactions would not be long in coming. It was a legitimate decision, but he could have called to let us know. Instead, we found out from the newspapers. In the last few days, he had been in Milan, and despite the fact that we reached an agreement with his agency, he skipped the meeting he had with coach Gianmarco Pozzecco. Betrayal, especially in basketball, is a very strong word. Situations like this happen, and from a personal point of view, I'm used to it. But he played us. This was a joke. We were planning a good commercial strategy for him. Banchero became a media target for an entire country. A player who had done nothing but overcome his difficulties in order to shine in the world of basketball, at only 20 years of age, had become public enemy number 1 of Italy. But despite that, he played a good role with Team USA, in which he averaged 9.3 points in 17.4 minutes with a spectacular 58% shooting from the field. But as was to be expected, that performance didn't keep him from his reputation as a traitor. Fortunately, that huge animosity that he suffered for months, and probably still suffers in his Instagram DMs today, has given him wings to progress. Banchero's not only been a player capable of performing in a team where all recent prospects failed, he's been able to finally make a team that seemed totally lost, finally competitive. The Magic are in playoff contention in the Eastern Conference, sitting comfortably above 500 for the first time in a long time. And mind you, we're talking about a franchise that's won 2 playoff games in the last 11 seasons. But why isn't Banchero being talked about like the other first overall selections in recent years? Anthony Edwards, the number 1 overall pick in the 2020 draft, is one of the most hyped young players in the entire league. Of course, that's for several reasons, such as the fact that the Timberwolves are one of the best teams and probably the best defense in the entire NBA. Victor Wembanyama, the number 1 pick in the 2023 draft, is recognized simply as the next GOAT candidate, with anything he does on the court making headlines day in and day out, and fans are constantly talking about his impact on one of the worst teams in the league, the Spurs. And Banchero, he's been left in the middle of these 2 players without much chatter. It seems like there's been more talk this season about Cade Cunningham, the number 1 pick in the 2021 draft who missed virtually all of last season due to injury, than the Magic player. Something that's incredible when we're talking about a player who, with 23 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 5.3 assists per game, has managed to become the youngest player in this season's All-Star game. Do you guys get it? 'Cause really, I can't. But don't worry. Time puts everyone in their place. Banchero continues to make his mark as one of the best forwards in the league. In fact, one could already say that he's one of the best forwards in his entire conference at the age of 21, but a victim of belonging to a franchise in a smaller market, it seems that Paolo has no choice but to go the underdog route. The road to becoming one of the most underrated players in the entire NBA, and in a small part of Europe, by the way, the path of a player who not only has had to overcome various difficulties and enormous pressure to reach the elite, but also is not being recognized for any of it. The perfect exemplification of bias and favoritism in the NBA.